Right, configuration, install license, configure the service, add the DNS server to a smart architecture, configure the local recursive DNS of the GSLB server, and provision the applications. So license, again, there is a separate license for this. It's not BLAS, it is DNS GSLB. Right, so if you have an appliance that has GSLB only, you can only see GSLB in these under services. If you have both Guardian and GSLB licenses, then it will show as such, DNS Guardian / GSLB. Right, under services configuration, verify that bind or unbound engine is running as local recursive. Then enable this service, select the listening port, and enable it started and enabled. So GSLB is a DNS server, so it must be added to the management appliance. So you must create the smart architecture in the DNS for the GSLB server, right, as a recursion, multi-master recursion, before you create the GSLB policy. So you can also use forwarder, right, as long as the bind is performing recursive to a forwarder, that can also work, not a problem. Right, so this is how where you deploy the forwarder. So GSLB provisioning is done via a new module called application. So you will see this module in the UI. And then from here, you will see applications being listed. So you will need to create the application FQDN first. Right, in this use case, there's actually 5. Okay. I will go through just one first, then I will show you the UI. So active backup architecture, you want to always send the traffic to the one that is active, right? And then you can manually switch over to the server when that primary one is under maintenance or is failing, right? So it will not send any traffic to the server in the west building, and that west building will be set to a backup mode. Right, so I'll show you the diagram again. So this guy will always be in active mode, and this server over here will be in backup mode. So all traffic being queried by the user to the GSLB server will be responded with the server that is always active. Okay. So what is backup mode? Backup mode is applicable to round robin and weighted. It's not applicable to the latency. And it allows you to switch from the active one to the backup one by setting it to unmanaged. Right, so you can also with a health check. So in case this one goes down, automatically it can also swing over to the backup one. Okay. So what do you do the first time you want to set up the GSLB policy? You create the application instance, give it a name, enter the FQDN of the application that you want to load balance, and then you add the GSLB server, which is the DNS server. Right, so once you do that, you will see this. Right, a class can be created if you have additional metadata. Right, typically, you will just see this. So several applications can share the same name if they manage different FQDNs. This is true. right? Several applications can share the same name if they manage different FQDNs. Several applications can manage the same FQDN if they have different names. This is true. Once associated with a FQDN, a GSLB server cannot be associated with another application managing the same FQDN. This is true. Lastly is an application object cannot be deleted unless all the objects underneath pool node has been deleted first. This is false. You can also just remove or delete an application object. It will automatically delete all underneath it. So adding an application, hide traffic policy deployment. So if you click this, it will expand out. If you close it back, then this part will not appear. This is just the UI. Let me show you. So application, create an application and create an application. I will do ftp.com, for example. Select number 1. Okay. So what that means is if you click this, you will see only one line. If you expand it, then you will see this application with this name server attached to it. Okay. Next, you add a pool. So pool is the configuration that tells the GSLB what kind or what mode that you want to configure it. Right. So this one is round robin mode. Right. And you set one mode as active and the other mode as backup. Okay. So what I'm going to do is go into the pool. And I give this a FTP pool. And I'm going to use round robin. This one, session affinity. If you want to have a session affinity, you can enable. But by default, we just leave it as is. Once you create a pool, this is the pool. Okay, which means we have this application, ftp.acme.corp. With this pool, we are using round robin. And then we can now add the nodes. Okay. So adding the nodes is now where you define what is the application IP address. Okay. You add the mode, you give it a name, you put in the IP address, you select the mode, whether you want to set it active or backup, and then the health check type is disabled by default. So once you add the node, you will see the weight for active and backup is different. It shows 1 and 0. Okay. So instead of going through one by one, you can actually create all objects from the first menu, application and traffic policy. If you have all the information, you can do that immediately from the the first menu, right? The method I went through just now is one step by step. So from here, you can actually put in all the necessary configuration. And then this is the test scenario. Okay, so let me set up mine. I will add the nodes over here, pool name, and I give the name server1. 210.80. So I have this 81, I think 83 is my backup. Eighty-two, 82. Yep, 82 is my backup. So I put 80. Active. So you can see here weight is 1. And then I'll add in the backup. Okay. And I will set this as backup. Okay. So backup server has a weight of 0. Server 1 has a weight of 1. So once it's deployed, you can actually start to test. But this one, the GSLB is stopped. Let me see if I can enable it back. I think one of the appliances is expiring. It's expired already. Let me check. NCM. Oh, NS1 has expired. NS2 is expiring today. Okay, my mistake. So these two are it's already expired. That's why I can't get the GSLB to be up. Still stop. Okay. So anyway, this is how you configure the GSLB. So the next one is via this method. Right, so I can create another application. Just put in admin.com. NS1, NS2, and then this is the pool. So web pool, and I will use, for example, weighted. Give it a name of the first node, server 1. 20. Put this as 4. And server 2. And server 3. Okay, that's it. So from a single menu, you create the whole application, including its node. And so this is the application. We go into the pool. This is the pool, and inside the pool contains the node. Server 1, 2, 3. Right. So once you have created that, you can actually use this command +CLI and then show GSLB address, so you can see which hits. This one is show GSLB address. So this one will list down the addresses of the servers in GSLB. right? And it also has this hits here. So the current value is 0. So when it serves an IP address to the client, you will see which one is being hit. Okay. So yeah, this one. So based on this number of hits, you can actually see number of times this node address has been returned to the client when the FQDN was queried, right? So from the left, this one shows the FQDN plus the node FQDN, then the application name. This is the FQDN, which means the client will query this. This is the application name plus pool name. Whether you set affinity to yes or no, the affinity value, right? Because this is no, so this value is ignored. Then there is the IP address, the persistent IP address, the admin status, right? The administrative weight of the node, right? Active is 1, backup will be 0. The value, dynamic weight of the node, this is not in use, this is for future. This is also for future, so no need to care about these two values. Then number of clients for which an affinity is currently active on this node. If you set this to yes, then this value will change accordingly. The status of the node, whether it's enabled or disabled, right? And also the current operational status, right? Where this is the health check status, whether it's enabled or disabled, and this number of hits. So how do you actually set a node to be disabled, for example? So we will go back here. Then I can see that this is enabled. I can just set this to backup. So this server will not be served when the query is being asked. Okay, you will see that the weight is 0, so no traffic will be sent to there. So this is how you can actually enable and disable a node. So you just right click, edit, set it back to active, and then change the weight back to 4. That's it. Okay, you can also use this to manage or unmanage it. So you put to yes, then it will be unmanaged. No, sorry, this is managed. Put to no, then it will be unmanaged. Right, so it shows here unmanaged. So all queries will not be sent to this server. To manage it again, select yes, apply. Okay, I think GSLB is pretty straightforward on how to configure it. Similarly, if you are doing this is for the core, which means the DNS server is sitting in the core nearest to the application, and we have a zone here, right? Okay, zone. Let me corp. Okay, so what we normally do is, if you have the FQDN, for example, here, web 1, web 2, web 3. So if you want to set the active backup, you put in the www to the backup IP. Okay, so this one is actually pointing to the backup IP, backup site IP. Right, so just leave it as is. So in case when the server, the active ones fail, it will straight away provide this IP to the clients. So in GSLB, you just need to deploy, create the application, application, web, pools, right? This one is weighted. And then if you set it to, okay, let's change this to round robin, for example. So you set the nodes, the one which has 82, change it to backup. Right, so when these two active are alive, it will just respond with either one because this is round robin. When these two fails, it will straight away serve with the third one. And this backup IP must match the www here using the backup IP, right? So at least the clients that is trying to access the site, if the GSLB detects all goes down, the client can still be able to resolve to the backup site. Okay. Any questions? Okay, no questions. Let me review the questions in the email. So what is the difference between edge and GSLB in the core? So basically in the edge, you place the DNS server nearest to the client, right? And GSLB in the core is nearest to the application on the data center, right? And the difference is edge is a recursive DNS, whereas in the core is also recursive, but it is authoritative for the zone also. Right, so in this example which I have in my lab, this can be considered a core GSLB because I own this zone, middle corp, and I also do GSLB. So I'm giving the IP address to the client on the service that is